Okay, so today
Hmm.
we're diving into some pretty heavy stuff, actually.
Yeah.
The latest UNODC and UN Women report on femicide,
Right.
which, you know, if you need a refresher, is the intentional killing of women and girls because they are women and girls.
Exactly.
And this report,
Would too.
it paints a very stark picture, but also reveals some pretty concerning trends, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
One of the things that really stood out to me was just the fact that fewer countries are reporting data on femicide now than just a few years ago.
Yeah, it is a bit of a paradox. It's
Hmm.
like we're gaining all this momentum in recognizing it, addressing it, but then
Yeah,
the data itself is kind of slipping away.
it's disappearing.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
wonder if that has to do with just all the other crises that we've been facing. The pandemic, economic upheaval, political tensions, all of that.
Yeah, it feels like the focus
It does.
is fading.
Yeah.
And that's really scary because even with the limited data, the numbers are horrifying.
They are.
The report estimates over 51,000 women and girls were killed by intimate partners or family members in 2023 alone.
Wow.
That's 60% of all intentional killings of women and girls.
60%.
Yeah, then they're
killed.
very upfront about the fact that this is likely just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, because you have so many countries that just lack the systems to accurately track and report these crimes. So you're trying to solve a puzzle with like half the pieces missing.
It's a mystery.
Yeah.
And if we can't measure it, how can we hope to solve it?
Exactly.
So why is this happening?
Um,
Is it just resources?
I mean, I think it's a combination of things.
Okay.
Resources, for sure.
Yeah.
But I also just think there's a certain discomfort, like around confronting this issue head on,
Yeah, we don't want to talk about
Nobody
it.
wants to talk about it.
Yeah.
It forces us to acknowledge some pretty ugly truths
Yeah.
about our societies.
Totally. So we've got this backdrop of like dwindling data, reluctance to even face the problem.
Right.
But let's not lose sight of the human cost of all of this.
Right. The human cost.
Yeah. And the report
Yeah.
uses these really powerful case studies to kind of illustrate how complex it is.
Yeah.
Let's start with France,
Okay, yeah.
where the data is very detailed. What stood out to you in that section?
Well, first of all, just the fact that 84% of all female homicides in France between 2019 and 2022
Oh,
were classified as femicides.
yeah, that's
It's
right.
not just a few isolated cases, it's a pattern.
Yeah, and I thought it was really interesting how this
Yeah.
data really challenges that notion that public spaces are inherently more dangerous
Right,
for women.
right. That it's safer to be out and about
Yeah.
than it is to be at home.
But this report really kind of points to the fact that
Right.
home is the most dangerous place for a lot of women.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the victims knew their killer.
Yeah.
It was someone they shared a home with, someone they trusted.
Right. And it's chilling to think that
It is.
what should be a sanctuary
Yeah.
is actually a trap for some people.
Yeah. And to make matters worse, 37% of women killed by their partners in France had previously reported violence
Ugh, that's heartbreaking.
to the authorities.
Yeah,
You're
I know
fine.
warning signs do we need.
Right, exactly. It's like,
Yeah,
we're not talking about random acts of violence here. It's like
right.
there were signs, there were cries for help. The system just failed these women.
The system failed.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just failing to protect the victims. It's like
Right.
there's this ripple effect
Huge ripple effect.
on the families and the communities.
Yeah.
31% of perpetrators in France committed suicide after the femicide,
Oh, wow.
and another 10% attempted it.
That's awful.
Yeah, so we talk about it as the loss of one life, but it's really
It's so much more than that.
so much more.
It's families, it's children, it's
Yeah.
generations.
Yeah, it's like an open wound on society.
It is. It is.
Okay, so we've got France, where intimate partner violence is this major driver.
Mm-hmm.
But the report also looks at South Africa, which has a much higher overall femicide rate.
Much higher, yeah.
What makes the South African case so interesting?
Well, what's fascinating is that South Africa had been making progress
Okay.
for almost 2 decades in reducing intimate partner femicide.
Oh.
But the latest data shows a complete reversal of that trend.
What?
Yeah, so between 2020 and 2021, the rates just spiked.
So like after years of positive change,
Yeah, like after years of things getting better,
just went backwards.
took a complete 180, and the report doesn't give us easy answers, unfortunately.
Right. Of course not.
It kind of hints that it's this mix of social, economic,
Right.
maybe even political
So
factors.
two very different cases.
Two very different.
France, where it's intimate partner violence, and South Africa, where it seems like something much more complex
Way more complex.
is happening. But both point to the need for more reliable data.
Oh, absolutely.
Deeper analysis into the root causes of this crisis.
Yeah, we need to understand not just the what, but the why.
Why? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I think this decline in data reporting is so troubling.
Right.
It's like we're losing our ability to see the problem.
Yeah, it's like we're fighting a shadow.
A shadow, exactly.
It's there.
You know, it's dangerous,
Dangerous. But we can't,
but it keeps shifting.
shifting and morphing.
Oh, yeah.
So we can't grasp it.
Can't grasp it.
Okay, well,
So we need to dig deeper,
yeah.
analyze what little data we do have, demand more transparency.
Accountability.
Yes.
From our leaders.
Yes, we can't let this just fade into the background noise.
Right, become normalized.
Exactly.
So before we get too bogged down in the doom and gloom,
Right.
let's talk solutions.
Solutions, yeah.
The report does offer some glimmers of hope, right?
It does. It emphasizes that femicide is preventable. But it requires us to move beyond just reacting to tragedies and embrace this more proactive, preventative approach.
Okay.
And that brings us to this concept of an ecological model,
Okay, yeah.
which I think is really helpful in understanding
Yeah.
all of this.
Have you ever thought about how interconnected the different levels of our society are when it comes to violence against women?
Oh, absolutely.
Like not just individual behavior.
behavior. No,
Right.
there's broader forces at play,
Yeah.
broader societal forces.
Okay.
So the ecological model, think of it as like a series of interconnected circles, right?
Okay.
So the inner circle, that's your individual factors.
Okay.
So that's things like a person's history of violence, substance abuse, mental health issues.
Got it.
Okay, then the next circle out,
Mm-hmm.
that encompasses relationship factors.
Okay.
Like power imbalances, control issues,
Yeah.
exposure to violence within the family.
Okay, so we're moving outward.
We're moving outward.
So then we go to the community,
Community circle. We are,
like social norms that tolerate violence against women.
right. Or lack of support services
Lack of resource.
for victims.
Mhm.
Okay, and then the final outermost circle. The outermost.
That's the societal factors.
Societal, yeah, like gender inequality,
Yeah. Yeah.
economic disparities,
Yeah.
cultural norms that glorify violence, all of that.
So we need to address all of these.
All of the layers, not just one or two.
Right, not just one or two. Tackle the problem from every angle.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But how do we actually put this model into practice?
That's the question.
It sounds a little theoretical.
a little theoretical.
Like, where do we even begin?
Well, the report highlights a few concrete interventions
Okay.
that have been proven effective.
Okay.
For example, risk assessments
Yeah.
conducted by law enforcement that can help identify women who are at high risk of becoming victims.
Okay, so that's like a first step.
First step, yeah.
What about preventing access to weapons?
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, there's growing evidence that firearm restrictions can really significantly reduce the risk of intimate partner homicides.
So it's a sensitive topic.
It is, but we can't ignore that link.
Yeah, the link between access to firearms and just the lethality of domestic violence, yeah.
Okay, so we've got risk assessments, protection orders, firearm restrictions. We're starting to build a toolkit here.
We are.
But what happens when these measures fail?
That's the tough question.
What do we do after a tragedy?
Right. Well, that's where these femicide review committees come in.
Yeah, we talked about these briefly earlier.
We did. And they play a really crucial role in learning from past mistakes.
Okay.
So they examine systemic failures after a femicide.
So like a postmortem.
A postmortem for the system itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's acknowledging that even with the best of intentions,
things can slip through the cracks.
they do.
So they look at every aspect of the case. The victim's history, the perpetrator's background, the response of law enforcement, social services, healthcare providers.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is, but they're trying to identify patterns, gaps, opportunities for improvement.
So it's like turning a tragedy into a learning experience.
Exactly.
Yeah, to prevent future tragedies.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this just a Europe thing?
No, not at all.
Are there examples of this kind of proactive approach in other parts of the world?
Yeah, there are. In fact, the report highlights this really impressive example from Colombia.
Oh, okay.
They've developed this integrated risk assessment protocol, and it's really innovative.
Okay, tell me more.
Okay, so what they do is they combine data from different agencies, right?
Okay.
So law enforcement, social services, healthcare provider.
So instead of working in isolation, they're all
sharing information. They're collaborating
Oh, wow.
to create a more comprehensive picture of a woman's situation.
Yeah.
So they're connecting the dots. They're understanding the full context of a potential threat.
Right.
And this allows for a much more nuanced risk assessment.
Okay.
Right. So the protocol takes into account all these different factors. The woman's personal history, her relationship dynamics, her social network, any previous reports of violence.
Okay.
And it generates a risk score based on all of this data.
So it's like an early warning system
It is. It's like an early warning system.
to identify women who are in imminent danger.
Exactly.
Wow.
And the results have been pretty striking.
Really?
Yeah, 35 to 40% of women screened using this tool were deemed at extreme risk of femicide.
That's a huge number.
A huge number.
Yeah, it just highlights how much we need this kind of focused, data-driven intervention.
Right. It's not just about reacting.
No, it's about being proactive.
Proactive.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's a powerful example of how data can save lives.
It is.
But it makes you wonder, how many women could have been saved
Right.
if this kind of approach was more widely implemented? That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a sobering thought.
Yeah, but I think that the Colombian example really does offer some hope.
I think so, too.
It shows that we can move beyond just reacting.
We can move beyond reacting and embrace a more preventative approach.
Okay, so we've covered a lot in this first part of our deep dive. The grim statistics.
The grim statistics.
The complexities.
The challenge of declining data.
Yep, declining data.
But we've also explored solutions like these femicide review committees, Colombia's integrated risk assessment protocol.
Yeah.
It feels like we're at a crossroads.
We are. It's like we have the knowledge, the tools, the examples of success.
We have the resource.
But we're facing this worrying trend of data disappearing.
Right, and maybe a waning global focus.
Waning focus, yeah.
So
the question is, what do we do with all this information?
what do we do? How do we turn awareness into action?
How do we ensure that this fight doesn't lose momentum?
Right, those are the million-dollar questions. They are.
And I think there are questions we need to explore further in the next part of our deep dive.
Yeah.
But before we get there, I want to pose a question to you, dear listener. Think about the different cases we've discussed.
Yeah.
The challenges we've outlined, the solutions we've explored. What stands out to you? What resonates most strongly?
Yeah.
Just hold on to that thought as we move into the next part of our conversation.
Great.
We'll be back to delve deeper into preventative strategies outlined in the report and explore what we can do individually and collectively to make a difference in the fight against femicide.
I like it. So, welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back.
I'm curious to know
Yeah.
what's been swirling around in your mind since we last spoke.
Yeah.
It's a lot to digest.
Yeah, it's hard not to feel
Yeah.
a little overwhelmed by the scale of it all. But like you said before, the report does offer some...
It does. Some glimmers of hope, yeah?
It really clearly lays out that femicide is preventable
Yes.
and that there are strategies to tackle this.
Absolutely. And they get into specifics, too.
Yeah, they do.
It's not just
It's just here.
theories and models.
Right.
It's like, here are some interventions that have shown promise.
Yeah, and I was thinking about those femicide review committees
Yeah, those are fascinating.
that we talked about.
They are.
It's not just about pointing fingers
No, not at all.
or assigning blame.
It's about analyzing what went wrong,
Right.
identifying those missed opportunities, and making recommendations to prevent it from happening again.
Yeah, like turning a tragedy into a learning experience. It's almost counterintuitive.
Yeah, but it makes sense.
But it makes sense, yeah.
You got to learn from your mistakes.
Yeah, what kind of changes have they led to?
Well, in Portugal, for example, the committees actually led to like a big overhaul of how domestic violence cases are handled by law enforcement.
Wow.
They found that police officers often lacked the training and the resources to properly assess risk and intervene.
So they were going in blind.
Kind of, yes.
Yeah.
So new protocols were implemented.
Okay.
New training programs were developed.
That's good.
Resources were allocated to make sure that officers are better equipped.
Yeah, so it's not just identifying the problems.
No, it's about taking action.
It's taking action, putting
Put
those
things into practice.
into practice.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about a country like South Africa?
Right.
Where we're seeing that upward trend.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
I mean, there are success stories.
Yeah, okay.
But the situation is definitely more challenging.
Yeah.
It seems like one of the key factors there was Just the breakdown of social support systems during the pandemic.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Lockdowns, economic hardship.
It all just came together.
It created this perfect storm for domestic violence to escalate.
Yeah.
But there are community organizations doing amazing work, providing shelter, counseling, legal support.
Oh, good.
The Sarji Bartman Center for Women and Children in Cape Town, they provide this whole range of services.
Okay.
Safe accommodation, trauma counseling, skills development.
So they're really helping women rebuild.
Helping women rebuild, escape that cycle of violence.
That's incredible work. And it really makes you realize that prevention isn't just about those top-down policies.
No, it's about community.
It's about communities.
Grassroots efforts.
Empowering people
to help themselves.
Absolutely.
So we've talked a lot about victims, systemic failures. What about the perpetrators?
That's the big question.
Yeah.
And the report actually does address that.
Okay.
It acknowledges that we have to address gender norms and challenge harmful masculinity.
If we want to stop this.
If we want to prevent violence against women, yeah.
Right.
And there are programs all over the world that work with men and boys specifically.
Promoting healthy relationships, challenging those traditional gender roles.
It's like a whole different angle.
It's a different angle, yeah. Fostering a culture of respect and equality.
Okay.
One example is the Men Engage Alliance. It's this global network of NGOs.
Yeah.
And they're all working to engage men and boys in gender equality and violence prevention.
So kind of shifting that narrative.
Shifting the narrative.
From men are the problem to men can be part of the solution.
Exactly. Men can be part of the solution.
It's about engaging them in the conversation.
Bringing them into the conversation.
Yeah, helping them see themselves as
agents of change.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, so it's not just about changing attitudes.
No, it's about addressing the root causes of gender inequality.
So economic disparity.
Economic disparity.
Lack of access to education. Limited opportunities for women.
When women are economically dependent.
Yeah.
When they lack access to education and healthcare. When they're denied equal rights and opportunities.
You're just more vulnerable.
They're more vulnerable, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so
we have to address these systemic inequalities.
Right.
Yeah.
The report talks a lot about the need for data.
Yes.
Yes.
Data is crucial.
We talked about how it's declining.
Declining.
But why is it so important in this fight?
It's the foundation of any effective response.
Okay.
If we don't have accurate data, we're basically flying blind.
Right. We can't understand the scope.
We can't understand the scope. We can't identify trends. We can't measure the effectiveness of anything we're doing.
It's like trying to navigate a maze in the dark.
Exactly. It's a maze in the dark.
So it's not just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's like it's illuminating the problem, showing us where to go.
Guiding us toward solutions. Yeah.
Okay.
Data can help us identify hotspots where femicide rates are really high.
So we can target resources.
Target resources, target interventions.
Okay.
Help us understand the risk factors that make women more vulnerable. So we can develop targeted prevention programs.
Right.
Track progress over time.
So we know what's working, what's not.
Exactly. So we can see what's working, what's not working.
So it's essential.
It's essential.
But if it's declining...
That's the problem.
It feels like a major obstacle.
It is. It is a major obstacle. And that's why we have to advocate for better data collection.
Right.
Demand more transparency and accountability.
For governments.
From our governments, yeah.
And just support organizations that are trying to...
That are doing this work, yeah.
Gather the data. So it's not just on researchers and policymakers.
No, it's on all of us.
It's on all of us to demand better.
To demand better. To push for more effective interventions. Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about prevention strategies, the need for data.
The role of men and boys.
Community, the power of community.
The Colombian model.
Yeah, Colombia's doing some really interesting things. Are there other examples of countries or organizations doing things differently?
Oh, yeah, for sure. One that comes to mind is Iceland.
Okay.
They've made some remarkable strides in addressing gender-based violence.
Okay.
They've got this really comprehensive approach. Early intervention, education, support services for both victims and perpetrators.
Wow.
They're really trying to challenge those harmful masculinity norms.
Okay.
Promote gender equality across the board.
And it's working.
It seems to be, they've seen a significant decrease in reported cases of domestic violence and sexual assault.
Wow, so they've created a model.
They have, yeah. It's pretty impressive.
It's really inspiring to hear these success stories.
It is.
It's like, we don't have to accept this.
This
violence.
I don't have to accept it.
What about the role of technology?
Oh, that's a good one.
Can technology be a tool for prevention?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We're seeing all these new tech-based solutions popping up.
Really?
Aimed at preventing and responding to violence against women.
Like what?
Well, there are mobile apps that allow women to discreetly alert friends or family if they feel threatened.
Oh, wow.
There are online platforms that connect survivors with support services.
Okay.
There are even AI-powered tools that can analyze data.
Oh, wow.
To identify patterns of abuse.
That's amazing.
And predict potential risks. So
it's like technology can really change how we approach this.
It has the potential, yeah.
But I'm sure there are challenges, right?
Of course, there are always challenges.
Privacy, data security.
Privacy, data security, the potential for misuse.
Right.
Those are all things we have to think about.
Yeah, but with careful planning and responsible implementation.
It can be a powerful tool.
For empowering women?
For empowering women, for creating a safer world.
Okay, so we've talked about prevention strategies,
Yeah.
the need for data, the role of men and boys.
The power of community,
Yeah.
technology. We're starting to get a more holistic picture of this complex issue.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
What about the role of the media in all of this?
Oh, that's a big one, too.
Yeah, I feel like they can either perpetuate harmful stereotypes or challenge them.
Absolutely. The way the media portrays violence against women can have a huge impact on how the public perceives and understands this issue.
Right. Like, how often do we see headlines that focus on the victim's behavior?
Oh, all the time.
Instead of the perpetrator.
Instead of holding the perpetrator accountable.
Yeah. What she was wearing, where she was.
What she was wearing, where she was, who she was with.
It's like they're trying to excuse the perpetrator.
Right, they're shifting the blame.
By shifting the blame to the victim.
Exactly.
Ugh. But I guess the media is also a reflection of society, right?
It is. It is a reflection of society.
These harmful narratives didn't just come out of nowhere.
They're deeply ingrained, yeah.
Yeah, they're rooted in biases and power structures.
Absolutely.
So it's really important.
It's so important.
For the media to be more conscious of the language they use.
The stories they choose to tell, yeah.
The perspectives that they amplify.
Yeah.
Imagine, like, a world where the media consistently challenged those stereotypes.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Focused on the systemic factors.
Yeah.
Centered the voices of survivors and advocates.
That would be powerful.
That could really change things.
It could have a profound impact.
It's about shifting that narrative from sensationalism and victim blaming.
To one of accountability.
Yeah, and empathy.
Empathy, understanding.
Yeah.
It's about using the power of storytelling.
To inspire solutions.
To inspire solutions, to expose the problem, but also to offer solutions.
The media has such a responsibility.
They do. They have a responsibility to inform.
To inform.
To educate. To empower.
Empower.
So they can be a catalyst for change.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we talked about data, prevention strategies.
Challenging gender norms.
Challenging gender norms. Empowering women.
Engaging men and boys.
Engaging men and boys. The media. Technology.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot, and I keep coming back to this question.
Yeah.
What can we as individuals do?
That's the question, isn't it?
It's easy to feel overwhelmed. Like our actions are just a drop in the ocean.
I get that. I get that feeling. It's easy to get discouraged.
Yeah.
But every action, every conversation, every act of resistance,
no matter how small,
it all contributes to creating a safer and more just world.
So what are some things we can do in our daily lives?
Well, it can be as simple as speaking up.
Okay.
When you hear someone making a sexist joke,
right,
challenge those stereotypes.
Perpetuate the violence.
Exactly. It can be educating yourself about the issue. Reading this report, sharing information with others.
Sharing the information.
Raising awareness in your own community.
Yeah.
It can be supporting organizations that are working on the front lines.
Donating our time or money.
Donating time, donating money. Yeah, whatever you can. And I think it's also about supporting the women in our lives. Listening to their experiences.
Yeah, believing their stories.
Believing their stories, offering support without judgment.
Creating those safe spaces for them.
Absolutely. Safe spaces where they feel heard, validated, empowered to speak out.
Yeah, it feels like there's so much work to be done.
There is.
But it's also inspiring to see how many people are dedicated to this cause.
It is. It gives me hope.
Me too.
That we can create a world where this violence is no longer tolerated.
Yeah.
Where every woman and girl can live free from fear.
That's the goal.
That's the goal. I share that hope.
Yeah. It's a long journey.
It's a long journey.
But it's a journey worth taking.
It is.
And it's not just about women.
No, it's about all of us.
It's about creating a more just and equitable society.
For everyone.
For everyone, yeah.
Yeah.
So we leave you with a challenge, dear listener.
I like it.
What will you do today,
Mm-mm.
tomorrow, this week,
this year,
to contribute to this fight?
What action will you take?
Will you speak up?
Will you educate yourself?
Will you support an organization?
Will you listen?
Or just listen?
With empathy and compassion.
To the women in your life.
It all matters.
Every action.
Every action matters.
No matter how small.
No matter how small.
Makes a difference.
It does. It all adds up.
The fight against femicide starts with each of us.
It does.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Thank you.
We encourage you to read the full UNODC and UN Women report.
Yes, please do.
And continue this crucial conversation.
It's a conversation we need to be having.
Together, we can create a world where every woman and girl is safe, respected, and valued.
That's the world I want to live in.
So we were talking about the media and how they portray violence against women.
Yeah, it can be really problematic.
Right. Like, it really shapes how we think about it.
Absolutely. I mean, think about how often we see headlines that focus on the victim's behavior.
Oh, yeah.
What she was wearing, where she was, who she was with.
Right, right.
Instead of focusing on the perpetrator, holding them accountable.
Yeah, like almost making excuses for the violence.
It's like they're trying to downplay it.
Yeah.
Using terms like lover's quarrel or crime of passion.
It's so minimizing.
It is. It's really minimized.
And it's like those narratives, they didn't just come out of nowhere.
No, they're rooted in our culture.
Yeah. Deep-seated biases and power structures.
Exactly.
So it's really important.
It's crucial.
For the media to be more aware.
More conscious of the language they use, the stories they choose to tell, the perspectives they amplify.
Right. Like, what if the media consistently challenged those stereotypes?
Yeah, what if they focused on the systemic factors?
Centered the voices of survivors.
Amplified the voices of advocates, yeah.
I feel like that would make a huge difference.
It would. It would really shift the conversation.
Yeah, it's about moving away from sensationalism and victim blaming.
Towards accountability, empathy, understanding.
It's about using storytelling to inspire solutions.
Exactly.
So the media, they have a huge responsibility.
They do.
To inform.
To educate.
To empower.
And to hold those empower accountable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about data, prevention, challenging norms, empowering women, engaging men, the media's role. It's a lot.
It is.
And I keep coming back to this question. What can we as individuals actually do?
It's easy to feel powerless. I get that.
Yeah, overwhelmed by the scale of it all.
You think, what can I do? It's just a drop in the ocean.
Exactly.
But the truth is, every action, every conversation, every little act of resistance, it all adds up.
Okay, so it does matter.
It matters.
So what are some things we can actually do?
Well, it can be really simple things, like speaking up when you hear someone making a sexist joke.
Right.
Challenging those harmful stereotypes.
Yeah, or just educating ourselves.
Yeah, read the report, share the information, raise awareness.
What about supporting organizations?
Absolutely. Donate your time, donate money, whatever you can.
Right.
And I think it's also about supporting the women in our own lives.
Yeah, just listening.
Listening to their experiences, believing them.
Believing them.
Offering support without judgment.
Creating those safe spaces.
Yeah, when they feel heard, validated, empowered.
It feels like there's so much work to be done.
There's a lot of work to do.
But it's also really inspiring to see how many people are fighting for this.
It is. It gives me hope.
Me too. That we can create a world where this violence just doesn't exist.
A world where women and girls can live free from fear.
That's the dream.
That's the goal.
So to our listeners, we challenge you. What will you do? Today, tomorrow, this week?
Will you speak up?
Will you educate yourself?
Will you support an organization?
Will you listen with empathy?
To the women in your life.
Every action counts.
Every single one.
The fight starts with us.
It does.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the UNODC and UN Women report on femicide.
Thanks for having me.
Keep the conversation going.
Let's keep talking about it.
Let's work together to create a world where every woman and girl is safe, respected, and valued.
That's what we're fighting for.